welcome back to the Fandom Zone podcast. I'm one of your co-hosts, Charles Skaggs, back in the Fandom Zone, or more to the point, the Basement of Solitude, as I'm joined by my wonderful co-hosts, wonderful friends, Jesse Jackson and DJ Nick, as we're going to discuss the first 3 episodes of Superman and Lois. How you doing, guys?
I am great. I am so looking forward to this. You know, sometimes you go into something with the whole mantra of please don't suck, please don't suck, please don't suck. And when it is good, you're just like, yay!
Yes, thank Rao.
Yes, exactly.
Yeah, but you put a little Superman reference there.
Yeah.
As we praise Rao for the greatness of these first 3 episodes, which we are about to discuss today. So, Nick, how about you? Are you excited to talk some Superman and Lois?
Well, first off, definitely praise Rao and, under Rao's eye always, may everybody be blessed under Rao's eye.
Appreciate the Krypton reference, by the way. Nicely done.
Yes.
had to do it. No, but, whenever it's Superman related, Charles, it's always such a joy for me because, of course, seeing the origins of the character and one of the few superhero characters I could actually have a chat with my rabbi about, which was just fantastic, because obviously I asked him about the origins of the word name Kal-El. He's like, of course, that's ancient Hebrew and Aramaic and stuff. So Superman means so much to me. And I was with Jesse. I was like, how are they going to make this different? Please make it worth our while because, we've seen so many iterations and I'm so excited. I can't wait to see where this show goes and super happy that we get a moment from the MCU to dive into the DC stuff and some of the CW stuff. So I couldn't be happier and discussing it with you two. What more could I ask for?
Exactly. So here at episode 209, like I said, we're talking the first 3 episodes of Superman and Lois, which have aired, the ones that have aired so far by the point that we're recording here on March 14th, 2021. So we're going to discuss Pilot, the very first episode, that debuted on February 23rd, 2021. We're also going to discuss Heritage, the second episode, and the third episode, The Perks of Not Being a Wallflower. And we're going to kind of do, for the sake of time, we're just going to try to keep these, hopefully, between like 20, 30-minute discussions per episode, because we know there's a lot to talk about, a lot of things we want to talk about. So I thought we could hit the highlights and hope for the best, fingers crossed. We'll see how it goes. But for me, I'm really excited because in addition to the 3 Flashes, Jay Garrick, Barry Allen, and Wally West, Superman is one of my all-time favorite characters. Probably the favorite character of mine. He's the character I most identify with, being the adopted son of a loving couple from the Midwest, go figure, and the character that, I think we all need right now. And something I noticed that when I was watching this first episode that we'll talk about is that this kind of gave me the same vibe watching it in 2021 that I got in 2001, barely a month after the tragic events of September 11th, 2001. It felt like this is the show that we needed at this right moment. So I'm getting that same vibe all over again. I don't know if you guys are, but this is how I'm taking it. And Jesse, I know you're obviously a huge Superman fan. You're sitting there in your Superman shirt. I'm sitting here in my Property of Smallville athletic department T-shirt. And Nick is the odd man out for not dressing for the occasion. So
He didn't get the memo.
He didn't get the memo.
I'm representing the opposition tonight with my Marvel T-shirt. But also, Charles, I should add, I'm sure you're probably also super proud that Siegel and Schuster from your home state as well, the creators of Superman.
Yes, because they are in Glenview, which is right outside of Cleveland, Ohio. It was like a suburb. Jerry Siegel and Joe Shuster, the writer and artist who created Superman as teenagers back in the day.
2 Jewish boys.
2 Jewish boys. 2 good Jewish boys, right?
Yes.
So once
absolutely.
again, Nick's people are represented well.
Yes.
Big shout out to my brothers for sure.
Exactly. Yes. So l'chaim, and as we celebrate. All right. So Jesse, before we get started and talk about a little bit, just quickly run down the cast and all that. Tell me about your Superman fandom and your expectations going into this show.
As long as I can remember, Superman and almost Superboy has been my favorite character.
Right.
Legion and the Superheroes, Superboy and the Legion of Superheroes. As a kid, I adored. I was old enough I'm old enough to remember the original Smallville that was kind of set in the 40s,
Yeah.
where Ma and Pa Kent owned the general store, later. And I can remember Clark helping to stock the shelves with super speed.
So you got this Silver Age comics background.
I do.
Yeah.
I do. And I remember being crushed when I remember being excited when John Byrne took over Superman, but then very disappointed that when he left after it seemed such a short time, after
2 years.
2 or 3 years.
Yeah.
And I wrote a letter, actually, and the DC replied, actually, because I'm saying, you blew up everything, all this years of history, and then the guy you gave the keys to left after such time. But by
Do you
far,
remember what issue that was in? Because I probably have it.
I don't.
I'm gonna have to track that down now.
I did find I believe the issue where Lois figures out the secret identity. Over the cover where
Action Comics 662, I believe.
I believe if you look at that, my Baldy Award is in that. I won a Baldy Award on the letter column on that.
Nice.
But by far, I loved the Superman family books. I loved Jimmy Olsen, Lois Lane, Supergirl, the Super Pets. I mean, just the Superman family was my favorite character. And nothing made me happier than when J. Michael Straczynski, put out his autobiography, which is a brilliant book, even though the first half is pretty dark, about how much Superman influenced him and how much he was. And I don't.
Yeah, Straczynski is a notable Superman fan, pretty sure. Yes.
And and I have my Schuster and Siegel Society T-shirt because I gave money to Brad Meltzer's, charity that they were working to rebuild, to remodel and buy the house.
Jerry Siegel's house. Yeah.
Yes, and so, and I know we'll get.
I have a license plate here in Ohio that has a Superman logo on it. It says Truth, Justice, and the American Way, and that money is devoted to keeping the maintenance on that.
That makes me so happy.
Right?
I mean, that makes me so happy.
That's my contribution. Yes.
Yeah, that is so great. And we're going to get to it, but there is some when Tyler. Well, we'll get to specifics about.
We'll run down the cast here in a minute.
Yes.
So.
But I adore the character, and whether it's a bad movie or a good movie, if it's Superman, I'm in.
Okay. Sounds good. And as for me, obviously I, got into Superman watching the Super Friends cartoons back in the 70s. And then when, in 1978, when the Christopher Reeve Superman movie came out, that's when I became a huge Superman fan. I started collecting the comics, just fell in love with the character. I was there like you with the John Byrne revitalization when DC, after post-Crisis on Infinite Earths, that DC relaunched Superman under John Byrne. And that post-crisis continuity lasted all the way to 2011 until Flashpoint. So that's essentially the Superman that I really identify with because I've collected every month since that. So this is a very big deal for me. Like I said, I identify with the character. I've had the fortune to write Superman when I was able to contribute to the Smallville Complete Series DVD set. There's a Daily Planet newspaper that DC Comics was responsible for producing that would go as an insert along with the DVD set. So I got to write 4 articles, supposedly articles written by Clark Kent, Lois Lane, et cetera, et cetera. So I got to be both characters because I got to write under those pseudonyms, and that was a lot of fun. I really appreciated that. That was a big deal for me being a Superman fan, being able to do that. Yeah.
Cool.
All right, Nick, how about you? What's your connection to Superman?
Well, you brought up quite a few great points there, Charles. And, in fact, I'm hoping that sometime soon we might be able to twist my acquaintance's arm, John Schneider, to join us at some point to discuss his time on Smallville and what have you.
The previous Jonathan Kent on Smallville, yes.
Exactly, and speaking actually of which, Smallville played a huge part in my life. It was one of the shows that me and my little brother growing up used to watch and was so passionate about, and obviously then to be able to get to work with Jonathan Kent himself was such a huge thing for me because I was like, I used to watch you when I was so small, etc. So
Yeah.
it was crazy, and also I was a huge fan of the Fleischer cartoons. I actually
Yes.
owned those on VHS. I still jealously
Which
have
actually
them on
get a
VHS.
nod in the pilot episode, which we'll talk about.
They do, yes, absolutely.
Exactly. So I love those, and I pretty much love every single comic book iteration of Superman, even Super Duper Man from Mad Magazine. That was actually
That
really
was a good
enjoyed
parody,
that.
wasn't it? Yes, it was.
Yes. So, I mean, anything that is really Superman, I love. Not to mention, of course, as I said, obviously being Jewish myself, I can very much relate to the story that Siegel and Schuster were telling when they first started out with this character. And he's just been such an inspiration. And,
Based on the concept of the Ubermensch, yes.
Yes.
Exactly. And also the whole thing, I suppose, then you have obviously the whole biblical thing of Moses being kind of, sent to another planet, because obviously Krypton was being destroyed. And a little quick personal story that has always served me very well in adult life. My mom once told me, in life, you have to be less like Clark Kent and more like Superman. And that actually really helped me
Okay.
gain confidence because it might not seem so, but I'm not exactly the most confident guy. And my mom said to myself, how can I get my son to be more confident? And she talked to me on my level. She said, let's talk superheroes. And she said to me, you go out there, be like Superman, don't be like Clark Kent. And believe you me, that mantra still serves today. And hey, what better example to use, right?
Well, who am I to argue with Nick's mom? I'm just
Absolutely, that is perfect.
Yeah, so I cannot dispute that.
One other thing, Charles, because you mentioned, and I was so happy for you when, you passed on that you were going to write for this box set. And
Yeah.
One of my truly great moments, Elliot S. Smaggin
Yes.
was at a convention here in Dallas, and there was no one around
Legendary
him.
Superman writer, wrote a lot of my favorite comics from the 70s.
Oh, absolutely.
Mm-hmm.
And I said, do you mind talking to me for a few minutes? No. And I was able to record like a 25-minute interview with him talking about what's the secret to writing a good Superman story, the idea that Superman never kills. It just true because I loved his two novels, Miracle Monday and The Last Son of Krypton.
Right.
I wore those paperbacks out. I still, in my mind, the way he wrote Lex Luthor and Superman, in my mind, is the way the Silver Age should be. And so be able to talk to him is one of my great things. And I
need to know if those things are in ebook form because I would love to read those.
Oh, yeah, absolutely.
I wonder if anybody knows, please write in. Let me know.
I will.
Hopefully
Okay.
I'll remember to try to do some more research because I'm really curious. I would love to read those.
Yeah. Have you never read them?
No, I never owned the
ago.
book. I never owned the books. So, because when they came out, I was a kid. And I didn't have any money, so my parents never got it.
Right.
So they would get me comics because it was a little cheaper, but yeah,
Yes.
All right.
Absolutely.
All right. So I know obviously we could devote an entire podcast just to talking about our Superman connection. So we should probably get going.
Yes.
As tempting as it is. Yeah. So apologies for that. So the cast on this one. So we have Tyler Hoechlin as Superman / Clark Kent. Or AKA Kal-El, strange visitor from another planet, and Elizabeth Tulloch as Lois Lane, reprising their characters that were introduced on Supergirl in this, post-crisis continuity that the Arrowverse now finds itself in. And we also have the debuts here of Jordan Elsass as Jonathan John Kent, Alex Garfin as Jordan Kent. So Jonathan obviously being the more athletic, favored son, and then Jordan being kind of the a little emotionally unbalanced, a little bit of a outsider one. So we got the very two contrasting personalities. Emmanuel Chikri, I hope I'm pronouncing that right, or Cricky, as Lana Lane Cushing. who is the, Clark's old girlfriend from high school that has now married. Obviously, Clark went on to marry Lois Lane, and Lana has married a character named Kyle Cushing, who's played by Eric Valdez, who, let's face it, is a real dick. No qualms there, right? I'm not really spoiling anything. Inda Navarrete as Sarah Cushing, who is the oldest daughter of the couple who Jordan has become smitten by and has developed this connection to. And let's see, we also have Wole Parks as Captain Luther, who makes his debut and is revealed at the very end of the first episode, who proves to be a very intriguing character that hopefully we'll learn more of in the future. Adam Rayner plays Morgan Edge. Dylan Walsh plays General Sam Lane, the father of Lois Lane, who has also apparently formed a interesting relationship with his son-in-law, Superman, that we'll talk about. Angus McFadden plays Jor-El, or as I love that that Jordan refers to as holograms in the Fortress of Solitude.
Yes.
And he's interesting because, he played Robert the Bruce in Braveheart. Now here he is. If you recognize him, if his name sounds a little familiar, that's probably why. Sophia Hasmick is introduced in the second episode as Chrissy Beppo, who runs the Smallville Gazette, at least until Lois Lane shows up. So we'll see what happens there. Stacey Farber is the character Leslie Larr, who is a character that I've got my eye on, and I've got some trivia for if we have time to get to it. But she's someone who makes a rather shocking reveal at the end of the third episode, as she ends up killing Subject 11, who is played by Daniel Cudmore, best known, I'm sure, to Nick and other Marvel fans, I should say, as Colossus in the X-Men movies.
Yep.
So let's see, we also had Michelle Scarabelli as Martha Kent, who sadly did not get more screen time. I was rather disappointed with that. I was a fan of hers since Alien Nation, the TV series, aired on Fox. Fred Henderson played Jonathan Kent, Paul Jarrett as Perry White, Dean Marshall as Samuel Foswell, who's a character that was introduced in the post-crisis Superman comics. Eric Keensley-Side as Mayor George Dean, and lastly, Jill Teed as Sharon Powell, who is a character I'm presuming that Lois is going to be working with quite a bit in her storyline. So I thought I'd mention her. She's also notable because she played Maggie Sawyer on Smallville, I believe.
Yeah, she did.
So she's got a little credit there. Now, Superman and Lois Season 1, it's going to be 15 episodes, expanded from 13. So we got 2 more. It's already been renewed for Season 2 after the first episode was huge, at least as far as streaming numbers go. The CW was very, very happy with it. Unfortunately, Season 1 is going to take a little bit of a COVID hiatus after the 5th episode, where it's going to get replaced temporarily by Supergirl, but according to reports, it's supposed to return in May. So it'll be probably like about 5 episodes of Supergirl, and then we'll get Superman and Lois back. And that's all I have as far as notes. So, guys, I was going to go into trivia, but before we get into that, so general reactions, really quickly, of your reactions to these first 3 episodes. So, Jesse, I'll start with you first.
Yeah, one of the things that I think Tyler does really well is he has a sense of fun. Like while he takes his responsibilities as Superman serious, he enjoys flying. The scene in the episode 3 where he picks up the bridge and the fisherman, he kind of waves back and like, oh,
right.
I love the way he plays that. And I also love, I saw someone said, why does he keep his glasses on? And I'm like, that's part of the normalcy. Yeah. That's why he puts on a jacket even though he doesn't need one. That's why he keeps his glasses on when he's at home, is that,
he's used to it by now.
Yeah. I mean, is Clark Kent or Kal-El the character, right? And they're both him. At the same time.
The correct answer is that they're both the same man.
exactly.
Clark is the disguise more for Superman, but they're both the same person.
Yeah. I loved Elizabeth Tulloch in the
Supergirl?
NBC. But also when she was in the NBC show. Why am I drawing a blank on the?
Is that Grimm, Jesse?
Grimm, yes.
Grimm,
She was on
okay.
Grimm, yes, she was absolutely wonderful in Grimm. And the key, Lois has to be smart and engaging. And I think Erica Durance did a great job in Smallville playing.
Right.
Up until that
she
time, she was my favorite Lois.
Yeah.
This one is coming close. I think because she's an older, more mature.
Mm-hmm.
I love the two characters. The two brothers. We'll talk about this some more, but I think that the writers and the acting, you have that brotherly conflict.
Mm-hmm.
That is normal if you were that close and that clear, but also that love, like you may irritate me, but if someone pushes us, we're together.
Right.
And I love that about that. I just so far, and just as a really quick note, I think it's very brilliant to have Lois Lane's father know who Superman is, and kind of how he's been kind of not his boss, but has been helping him, kind of directing him, and the idea that no, your career has to come first, and Clark is trying to figure out how do I balance my work life and my home life, and I just think that's a brilliant storyline.
All right. And Nick, how about you? What was your initial reactions to these first 3 episodes?
Well, I have to say I was just blown away. So far, I think it's one of the strongest, if not the strongest, current CW show running. With the latest season of Black Lightning a close second. But should we say, when it comes to a debut, and just compared to what everything else going on, I think it's one of the strongest running right now. And it really makes you want to carry on with the story. I was just blown away by the cinematography, because you can definitely tell quite a bit of money was spent, especially in the pilots, which we will get to. But quite a bit of money was spent on the CW's part to make that pilot look so good. And it seems to me like they're borrowing, at least cinematographically or visually speaking, a little bit from Man of Steel when it comes to colors.
Yeah.
Because the colors are a little bit colder, if you will.
The color palette,
The color palette is very Zack Snyder-ish, if you will. I mean, it did remind me a little bit of that kind of Man of Steel vibe.
Yeah.
But unlike that, you definitely have that hopeful vibe, that good vibe. And I'm just really enjoying it, because I also love they're not rehashing what has already been done, which is a trap you could easily fall into when it comes to Superman. Because it's very hard to create something new with a character that we've seen in so many different sources and so many different versions. So far, I'm just really embracing and loving everything about it. And and of course, I will give more elaborate thoughts when we get to the episodes per se. But yeah, that was the vibe I got. And I also like that we got somewhat of a callback to other TV shows. Like, I think Elizabeth Tulloch is kind of channeling a little bit of Terry Hatcher as well from Lois and Clark. That's at least the vibe I was getting.
Right.
But and I was a big fan of Lois and Clark, mind you. But mainly because Terry Hatcher. I mean, okay, she's gorgeous. But other than that, in general, it's just a great show.
Yeah, we don't like to discuss Dean Cain much these days, but yeah.
No, we do not. We do not.
But I have interacted with him a couple of times on Twitter, and as long as you're respectful to him, even though he has crazy.
Right.
Things, he's been respectful back to me. But
well,
yes,
I met him and got his autograph, and he was very pleasant to me. So as far as engaging his fans, I have no complaints about him whatsoever.
Yes.
But I know that often he can not be so nice and very un-Superman-like, as far as I'm concerned.
So when the cameras are off, you hear certain stories where you're like, eh.
Well, it's his political views, but
exactly. His leanings are debatable and what have you. So,
his ideology, unfortunately, I think it got the better of him, unfortunately.
Very much so.
So anything else, Nick?
No, I mean, other than that, I said I want to obviously keep a few of the things for when we actually get the episodes themselves. But all around, I just am loving this show, and I'm hoping it stays at this level, because it kind of reminded me also a little bit of how Arrow started so strong.
Right.
And I hope, granted, we'll have to see how many seasons this gets. And obviously I'm looking way too far ahead, but I'm just thinking to myself, I'm just hoping it does not go the routes that Arrow went at a certain point where it was like mediocre television at a certain point.
So looking at basically jumping the shark after the season 2 finale.
That's right.
Yeah. Essentially.
So I'm just
had
hoping
2 good seasons, and then not so much the rest. Yeah.
Then not so exactly.
Yeah.
So I'm just hoping they might learn from Arrow, and we continue to get episodes of this caliber. Granted, it's still very new territory, so of course you're going to get great stuff. I just hope they can keep the game going as they are now, because it's a superb stuff.
Right. So for me, obviously having watched The Adventures of Superman, reruns back in the day, and then Lois and Clark and Smallville. So, obviously, going into and Krypton, I should point out and add. Very, very concerned. I want to make sure that, this lives up to the character that I love so much. And, not that I could really do anything about it, but, I just, you want that. And this show, for me, delivers totally. I love the fact that, unlike the rest of the Arrowverse shows, it stays away from the camp. It treats its material much more seriously. It's a much more grounded family drama, and it's not just coming up with all contrived things like unfortunately the Flash is doing a lot these past couple seasons, and it has a much more serious tone, and just great characterization. The emphasis, and this is where I think a lot of the Arrowverse shows are failing. They're not focusing enough on the characters. They're not developing them. But so far, they're really doing a great job handling. They're introducing the characters at this point, so everything's still kind of new, but they're handling it very, very well. It's got a very promising start. Now, hopefully, like you said, they'll be able to keep that up. We'll see. But, I want to second your point that it looks like they've thrown some money on this one. It seems like all the money that should have gone to the other Arrowverse shows are now going to Superman and Lois, maybe because, Warner Brothers has decided, hey, you're not going to treat Superman like you treat your other shows. This is going to look good. Okay? And thankfully, they got Todd Helbing, who used to be one of the main players, one of the main writers on The Flash back in the day, during its early seasons. That he's now the showrunner of this, and so far he seems to be doing a really good job. And I'm really looking forward to seeing what happens from here. So, all right. So trivia. I just have actually a couple of things I want to mention, and then I've got some other trivia that, if we have time, we can get back to for the sake of time. So I don't want to bog us down in trivia because we got 3 episodes to talk about. But I did want to talk about John Kent, because I thought some people might appreciate some comics background on John Kent. So he first appeared in 2015's Convergence Superman #2 as the post-crisis son of Superman and Lois. So he was introduced in the comics first. As part of DC Comics' 2016 Rebirth era, John, now roughly 10, 11 years old, starts developing superpowers while the family lives on a farm in Hamilton County, 300 miles north of Metropolis. And, these are stories that are featured in the Superman run of that time that was done by Peter Tomasi and Patrick Gleason. A fantastic run. I highly recommend. They did 45 issues, and you really should pick them up and track them down if you don't, because it's some of the best Superman stories in years. Highly recommended. But John soon takes on this identity of Superboy, having gotten his powers, and becomes close friends with Batman's son, Damian Wayne, a.k.a. Robin. So essentially what you have are the Super Sons, only in a much more modern form. Jesse probably remembers the Super Sons from the 70s. That were in World's Finest. Well, this is a modern spin on that with these characters.
Yeah, it is.
I love those.
Yeah, and after John's Kryptonian grandfather, Jor-El, is revealed to, hey, have survived Krypton's explosion recently. Jor-El took Lois and John on a trip across the universe to educate John about, the planets and everything going on out there in space. Lois soon returned to Earth, but Jor-El's ship fell through a black hole where John found himself on Earth 3, which is really bad, and was imprisoned by Ultraman, the evil Superman of that parallel Earth, for several years. And after being rescued by Jor-El, John, who is now an older teenager, returns to Earth and finds that only 3 weeks passed since he left. So he soon accepts membership in the 31st Century Super Team, the Legion of Superheroes, but has recently returned to his original time period to be with his family. That's where John is currently right now. So essentially we have a teenage Superboy in DC Comics, along with Clark continuing as Superman and Lois still being married. We talked to this about a little bit now. When in the first episode in the pilot, Superman's first heroic feat is to save a boy being crushed by a green car, a very familiar-looking green car. And the scene of him putting the car back on the ground resembles the cover of Superman's comic debut in Action Comics Volume 1, Number 1 in 1938. So this was the very first appearance of Superman, and I love that it got this nod in this great origin sequence, which we'll talk about here in a second, because we really need to talk about that origin sequence. It's so well done. And the Superman costume, like I mentioned, was a nod, an homage to the Fleischer Studios animation costume that were animated shorts from 1941. So just thought I'd mention that. So, all right.
And also, I'm sure this may come up, but the Superman for All Seasons, which is truly one of the great Superman stories.
By Jeff Levin, Tim Sale, yes.
Yeah. Has the line, my mommy made,
my mom made it. Yeah.
Yeah, my mom made it, and they threw that in there, which made me very happy.
Yeah, it's fantastic. They seem to be borrowing a lot from a lot of different Superman sources throughout the decades, not just years.
Yeah. And
we'll talk about that.
Yeah, for those of you who do not know, the Smallville did buy that trade paperback. Everyone who worked on Smallville, those Superman for All Seasons, was that was given to the writers' room as material. So really, really lifting up the tractor. Kind of reminds you of the movie. Mm-hmm. There's been a lot of stuff that just kind of nice little, not overly overt, but enough that you gotta, that's fun.
Yeah, you get that occasional nostalgic vibe. And especially if you're a comics fan, you really appreciate some of these references.
Yes.
All right. So, 3 episodes. Let's talk the first episode, pilot. So, February 23rd, 2021, this aired. Story by Greg Berlanti and Todd Helbing, who, like I said, is the showrunner on Superman and Lois. Teleplay by Todd Helbing. Directed by Lee Tolan Krieger, who is also an executive producer on this series. And this was, he directed the first 3 episodes of Riverdale, the first 2 episodes of Chilling Adventures of Sabrina, which is a fabulous show, and he also directed the pilot to Deadly Class, which is a short-lived series that was on Sci-Fi, which I loved, based on the Image Comics series. So we open up this pilot episode with this wonderful, delightful retelling of Superman's origin. Essentially, it's a recap up until this series. And it's done in about maybe 5-8 minutes. And it's handled so well to get everybody up to speed on the necessary backstory before we go forward. And first, I want to get your thoughts on that because, we get to see things, like I said, like the nod to the car lifting up and when Superman makes his debut and we see him in a different costume and kind of, he meets, we get to see Clark meeting Lois for the first time and their first encounter in this continuity and some other things. So guys, I want to know your thoughts. Nick, I'll start with you first. Any thoughts about this particular origin, the way it was handled, the retelling?
First of all, I was very, very happy with it, Charles, as you mentioned. And secondly, you tend to, during our podcasts, showing us these wonderful comics, that you always, that you proudly display. And
right.
what I can say is, I would have probably lost my stuff if you'd shown up in Action Comics issue #1, because probably I'd be like, okay, yeah, because I mean, or probably because
I
for
have
your own
collections
safety,
that
you're
have
not
that in
showing.
there, but I don't have the actual issue.
Yes.
So I
Yeah,
would
no, because I'm
love.
saying, 'cause
So
probably
if
if
anybody
you,
wants to, give me their copy, I'm more than happy to take it off your hands.
yeah, because I was just going to say, because probably if word got out that you had Action Comics #1, Charles, your life would probably be in danger by
Yeah,
multiple people. I'm
yeah,
just
yeah. For the
saying.
record, I do not own a copy, so please don't rob my house. Okay.
That said,
Yes.
I love that little touch, of course, to the homage to Action Comics #1, and of course the Fleischer cartoons, which, as I mentioned, I absolutely adore. And it was really, really masterful storytelling. I mean, we've seen the likes in Chilling Adventures of Sabrina, like you mentioned, and Dead Class, which are fantastic. Riverdale, not so much, but that's another story.
But it looked
But
good. It looked good.
aesthetically, yes. I mean, should we
Yeah.
say the aesthetic was there, the content, It was like a hollow chocolate bunny,
Right.
literally. There was nothing inside it. But no, outside of that, I really, really loved it because it was really paced well. It got you up to speed without having to tell you the same origin over and over and over again. It's like, we know how Spider-Man got his powers. You don't have to tell us an nth time, just like we know Superman is an alien.
Right.
But the way they did it, it was, they made it a little bit modern. They added their touch to it. I was just so happy. As I mentioned, kudos to just the cinematography and the direction, because I was sold from the get-go, because I actually got new information. Because obviously, like you guys, I was super familiar with Superman's background, but this did not bore me. I wasn't like, okay, let's get to the story already. We get the origin. No. So I was very, very happy with it. And Jesse, what about you?
Yeah, I think you both are right. We do not need to see another Superman origin. We do not need to see another Spider-Man origin. I mean, go on and on and on, right?
No, it's more like a quick recap.
No, but that's what I'm saying.
Yeah.
You don't need to see that, and so to do this in such a way that's kind of okay. For those of you who are casual fans, I'm going to set what's going on. For you more in-depth fans, here's the rules of our universe, kind of, right? Like there can be different versions of Superman. We're going to set this up, and it has a slight feel, and this is a stretch, but the beautiful silent start of Up, where you get this whole story at the very beginning that sets this up. This is in very quickly where we're setting the stages for our version of Superman and Lois. And I loved it. I love the idea that they're kind of catching it. And so you're going like, okay, they're parents. They have teenage children.
Essentially.
Yeah, this is foundation. Perfect word, Charles. Mm-hmm. They set that up very well. And it didn't you're without showing they made it look seamless. It wasn't like, okay, now we've got to stop and do a lot of exposition. The beautiful way they did it, it is a great way to start things off.
Okay. Yeah, I think so. And so after Clark ends up losing both his job and his mother on the same day, Clark ends up, takes the family. They go to Smallville to attend her funeral, and this is where he, reunites with Lana, and we're introduced to Lana and her family, Kyle, and their daughters, Sophie and Sarah. Sarah is the one that the older one, and then Sophie's kind of like a younger one that we don't get to see much of. But so what did everybody think of the introduction of the Langs, or at least the Lang Cushings, I should say, and where do you think that might go forward? Jesse, how about you?
Well, I like them. We're going to talk about. I hope we do.
Yeah. There
has been some criticism of the show, and it is done with love. That even though it is set in Smallville, Smallville does not have to be so white, just to be bluntly, right?
Right.
And so very few of the characters of a different there are very few people of different ethnics, and the ones that are jerks, including, Lana's husband, who, who has is played by an actor of
Eric Valdez. Yes, he's a Latino.
Latino.
Yeah.
Yeah. I like I like the idea that Lois and Lana are friends. That they've established. I don't like the idea that they got rid of Martha.
Yeah.
I think you could have figured out, like, she could have been just starting to be ill and not take care of the farm some more, and could have brought them back. But then I like the fact that Clark had his parents. That was one of the sad things of Silver Age, that he lost both his parents, and so I'm always sentimental. But I love the setup. I love that it's a next generation, perhaps, of Lana's daughter and, Clark and, sons.
Yeah.
They don't go the obvious love triangle. They don't.
Not
it's
yet.
just they're friends and they're done. Yeah, not yet. But I mean, right now we only have seen the 3 episodes.
Yeah.
And I trust these storytellers so far that they're not going to go with the cliche. So I think it was really good to see them. And for all his, even though, as you said, he is a jerk, I also see his concern. This city, our town is dying. There's someone who can, I don't care if it's the devil himself. If he can get us jobs and he can, restore Smallville, I'm going to support them, which is very realistic in today's political world.
Yeah.
So really well done.
Yeah. So the question is, of course, at what cost do you want these jobs?
Absolutely.
What price are you willing to pay to get these jobs?
Absolutely.
Nick, how about you? Any thoughts on the introduction of the Langs? Or Lang Cushings, I should say.
Yes. Well, I do kind of echo Jesse's thoughts on maybe the fact of characters from certain ethnicities are portrayed as villains, or should we say as negative characters in this, because obviously you have Kyle, and then you have, of course, Sophie's boyfriend, who is African-American, who doesn't seem to be the nicest person either, and he's an African-American.
Well, they do have, to their credit, they do have Chrissy Beppo in the, in charge of the Smallville Gazette, so...
No, of course. I mean, I don't, I try to be as, shall we say, colorblind as possible. As to me, people are just people, and it doesn't matter whether, it's a Latino or an African-American or a Caucasian. They're people, and you have bad and good people in every ethnicity regardless, which obviously I know is an obvious statement, but I just wanted to put that out there.
That's fair.
But outside of that, I mean, obviously we've come to love, us comic book fans have learned to love Lana Langford in multiple versions. Also, of course, in the movies as well, in the early films as well. In the Donna movies, of course, we learned to love the character of Lana Lang too. So it was great. It's an interesting twist, which is why I'm so happy is we're not going down what we've seen already. So I think it should make for a fun show. And also, as Jesse was pointing out, the populist views, which are very much part of the political background of today, can very much be seen in Kyle's concerns, and also possibly in the character of Morgan Edges, who seems to embrace those almost populist views. And you could kind of see who Kyle would vote for if this were a real show. I'm just saying.
Yeah, exactly.
I'm just saying.
Yeah, pretty much. Yeah, it's kind of right there, right?
Yes, it is.
Yeah, I mean,
the fact that we'll talk about this when they have the barbecue, that comes out pretty clearly.
Yes.
With his attitudes toward Lois.
Yes.
Yeah.
So I think it was very much also a representation of what is going on in the world today. So yes, I do like this group. I hope we don't get a love triangle, because that would be just trite and it would have been done so many times. But also, I don't see this kind of Clark doing that. I don't see him two-timing Lois or even Lana trying to get in bed with Clark, if you will. So I don't see that possibly.
Lana might try, but Clark won't go along with it.
Yeah.
And I was thinking the two boys and Lana's daughter is the love triangle that I don't think we're going to see.
Yeah.
I don't think so either. Yeah, but also to Jesse's point of killing off the parents, granted, Park Kent, of course, pretty much dies in every single iteration, which is always very sad. I do see why they did it. As much as it broke my heart, I thought to myself, look, they're trying to create and build new ground. And plus they want to put the spotlight on Clark and Lois's parents. And so they wanted to focus on that. So maybe they said we don't need a third parental character because we have Clark and Lois on one hand, and then we have the other family symbolized, of course, by Kyle and Lana. So I think they said it would be too many parental figures. And I think that's probably why they did that.
Yeah, and I think also, I'm sorry, that
no, continue.
That they did that because they wanted Clark to not be able to rely on his parents because he's so used to, getting advice from his parents, especially, it's his mother and so consequently, it's up to Lois and him to come up with these answers for the problems that their kids are experiencing or whatever's going on in a particular episode. So Clark is having to, almost, he's the father now. The father has become the son, and the son has become the father, that kind of thing. And so consequently,
I see what you did there.
Thank you. So now it's Clark's responsibility to figure these things out and to provide advice to his twin sons.
Well, they wanted to take the training wheels off of Clark's bike, first off, and two, they needed a narrative reason to keep him in Smallville.
Yeah.
Yes, I do think that is the reason why, and I like your thoughts, Charles, on why they're doing it.
Yeah.
I would have thought it'd been interesting to have the three generations.
I agree.
The grandparents, the parents, and them, and still that I think it could have worked, but that is a very solid reason on why he felt like he had to go home.
Yeah.
And so that is good. I agree.
Because with them gone, he's got to take care of nobody else can take care of the Kent farm. So therefore, it's his responsibility now.
Absolutely. Yes.
And so consequently, he had to go there, and that's what, that was the impetus to getting them there. Personally, for me, I grew up, with the John Byrne Superman. So I love Mon Pa Kent. I think,
yes,
I thought they're great characters. They really provide that foundation for Clark. But, and this is what I think is making this show more special, is that this is Clark in a later stage in his life. Mm-hmm. So consequently, if you're going to move the timeline along, you kind of have to, address the issue of having elderly parents, because otherwise it's just going to be Clark taking care of his elderly parents.
Yeah, good point.
And them not being able to contribute much as characters, apart from just, maybe, saying something wise every so often.
Sure.
Yeah. Yeah, I think it would just been kind of sad and tragic to kind of, say Ma Kent bedridden,
right,
and Clark kind of at the end of the episode going to his bedridden mother.
Yeah.
I mean, the CW could have done that since they love to tug at people's heartstrings, like in the early seasons of The Flash with Barry going to his dad at the end of every single episode.
Right.
Just to tug our heartstrings and make you cry. It's like, he's not going to be seeing his daddy, ha ha ha, kind of thing. You cry and that. So I think they could have done that.
That could have been a major downer, though, if they had done that, though.
Yeah.
Yeah, in fact, that's what I'm saying is it would have been such an easy, tearjerker thing. And I'm glad they didn't. And plus, to just rehash what you guys were saying, I think it's, take the training wheels off of Clark's bike, because now it's time for him to be the parent. And it just makes more sense. It's sad, but I think it's good that we're getting something new.
Yeah, and I think there's going to be some interesting rivalry going on between Clark and Kyle, because I think Kyle is jealous of Clark because he knows that Lana and Clark had a history together.
Yes.
In high school. And even though Clark has no intention of being a threat to Kyle's marriage, Kyle may not view it that way.
Yes, I agree.
Because he seems a bit controlling in a lot of respects.
And of course, Charles, out of the mouths of babes, as they say, because obviously it's the children who bring up the fact that Clark and Lana had a thing.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, when
children say the darndest things.
Sarah drops her big truth bomb in the middle, in the later. Well, that's in a later episode, but yeah, she just drops this big truth bomb in the middle of this town diner, and a little bit of an awkward moment, shall we say? All right. Yeah, they're obviously very concerned about Morgan Edge's plans for Smallville because they find out at talking to people around town that Morgan Edge has been buying up farms or what have you. And there's apparently something very hinky going on at the local bank because of all these interesting reverse mortgages that they're trying to take advantage of situations that these people are the problems that a lot of people are having these days, keeping their farms. And we find out that Martha Kent, Clark's mother, took a reverse mortgage of her own, but did it not because she needed the money, but because she needed to help other people with money and help them keep their farms. So essentially, like her son Clark, she's a savior of Smallville. And that's something I think that was an observation that Lana makes that comparison to. Kind of like your friend Superman. She was our hero in a lot of ways. Yeah. So, essentially like mother, like son, right?
Yeah.
Obviously, this is something that picks, Lois's interest. She gets her super smell and smells the story. And we know Lois being Lois, we'll see where that goes. Now, in this first episode, I was actually a little let down with Lois the depiction of Lois, because it seemed like a lot of the emphasis was on Superman and also on, the twins, obviously, because they have to really introduce these characters. So I kind of was a little concerned that Lois kind of got a little bit of a short shrift. But thankfully, with the later two episodes 2 and 3, they really stepped her up. And I was very glad to see that.
Agreed. And also, I love the fact of this addition of an extra son, if you will, because obviously, as you were pointing out in the trivia, Charles, that we only had that in, shall we say,
he doesn't exist in the comics. Yeah.
Jordan Kent does not exist. And I thought it was an interesting addition to the whole dynamic. Yeah. And truth be told, Jordan Kent looks more like, shall we say, a Superman, if you will, than Jonathan, when it comes to just the kind of curly, dark hair and what have you. So it was a nice touch then. I think it was great that we got this extra character. And I was super looking forward to seeing Morgan Edge, who we will talk about later. But, the fact he just gets mentioned so much, like, you're waiting to meet this big bad. And I was thinking it would be one actor, but it turned out to be another, but more on that later.
Yeah, exactly. So Jesse, what did you make of since Nick brought it up, what did you make of Clark and Lois having twin sons as opposed to just one son?
Yeah, I love the idea that they have the twins because that gives you the dynamics of you've got the sibling rivalry, yet at the same time they're bonded. I do know I like the idea, and I was happy that the more nerdy Jordan of the son got the powers versus instead of what you would perceive the golden boy, the already gifted athlete, right? Mm-hmm. Right. So I thought that was a nice thing. I did get, as I was telling you guys before we recorded, I talked to a writer with comicbook.com, and he said it is very confusing for him that Jordan plays Jonathan and a guy named Alex plays Jordan, and so he's like he always
keep it straight.
To get it straight. Yes, he says. But I really like both of the guys. I like the idea, and I will tell you as someone who's gone through it. When Chris was a teenager, it was a pain in the ass almost constantly. They're fighting, right. And it's part of the, they are fighting to get their independence and to be, find their limits. And it is difficult. And we were not, outnumbered. It was Lynn and I together with Chris. And so now then they're tied, right? There's two of them.
Yes.
So I think that's going to make, and so far, we're only 3 episodes in, but so far they have had, from my perspective, and I'd love to hear y'all, the right mix of family drama, the political kind of what's going on with the bigger bad, and the superheroes. It has been a nice blend that kind of gives you a little bit of everything, but it doesn't feel like Game of Thrones where, okay, we haven't seen this character for a while, so let's give it 7 minutes. Okay, and now we're going to go. They've been able to do a very cohesive storytelling.
Yeah, it's very balanced.
Agreed, Jesse. Agreed,
Yeah.
agreed. And also to your point, Jesse, just even as Charles was bringing up too, this is the most un-CW-ish of the lot. Because even just the
Which is a good thing.
storytelling,
Yes.
certainly, certainly. I mean, already the fact, I mean, as I said, I don't have anything wrong with eye candy, but already we have people who look like normal people, for crying out loud. And not everybody is a supermodel, unlike other CW shows where everybody is ridiculously good looking. And here at least you have normal people. I mean, Smallville is believable. You could actually think you'd meet these people walking down the street. I mean, I know it's a very superficial point of mine, but I think it makes it even more believable, if you will.
Yeah, I think that for whatever reason, and I think this is a great decision, that Superman and Lois essentially is the Arrowverse finally raising its game, stepping its game up. Because, they've kind of given us a lot of the, very formulaic superhero adventures and stories up until this point. But Superman and Lois is something different. It's much more in the realm of, say, shows like Watchmen or the more serious superhero dramas. It's not quite there, but it's closer, a lot closer than the rest of the Arrowverse shows. And like you said, it's from the casting, this just to see the people in town, and like I mentioned, the lack of campiness. It's a much more grounded take. So consequently, I find it much more interesting. I'm an older viewer, I can appreciate the fun stuff, the lighthearted stuff, but every so often I want something a little meatier. That's what I'm gravitating to these days. I want something a little bit more substantive, and thankfully this show's giving that.
And when we get to episode 3, I think that's a good example. We'll talk a little bit more about some of the subplots of episode 3, where they did a really good blend of the teenage drama and what, the mother-daughter, father-son, all that, really well done.
Yep. So we probably should talk a little bit about Jordan and Jonathan finding the spaceship where Clark was brought to Earth, down in the Kent farm, in the barn cellar. So obviously this is almost it's a very superheroic moment. This is where the truth comes out. The kids who have been kept from this, because Clark has guarded the secret and Lois has agreed to go along with this. They discover the spaceship down there, and this ultimately forces the decision that Clark and Lois have been grappling with about whether to tell their sons the truth that Clark is Superman. And so essentially it forces them to confront this once and for all. All the cards are laid on the table, and Clark has to admit, like, yes, I've been lying to you all this time because I'm trying to protect you and whatnot. So Jesse, I'll start with you. I want to get your thoughts on what you thought of the twins finding out that Clark is Superman, and the way Clark admitted who he was to his sons.
So one of the things that irritates me, and I know you two have said the same thing,
right,
is the trope of the girlfriend or the best friend not knowing you are who you are, your secret identity, right?
Right.
Coming up in a couple of weeks on Next Stop Everywhere, your Doctor Who podcast that we hope, see,
yes.
Talk about shortly.
Right.
Tom Zoller is going to join us, and when he was writing his book Love of Capes, the very beginning is, I'm going to tell this woman I love her. I've got to go in, so I have to tell her my secret identity, right? If I love her enough. And so I get the idea you don't want to tell your children too soon, but also you could see this is something they've been debating. When is the right time? And, and I don't want to – it's not that I don't trust them. It's just this is a big secret, and it puts them in danger. And I think it's handled really well. I think the boys handle it with enough – there's enough, like – they don't go, oh, man, cool.
Anger.
I mean, it is,
there's some
there
hurt.
is some anger. There's some
there.
anger. Yeah, and I know that some parents make it known right from the beginning that, hey, we loved you so much, we went out and found you. You were adopted.
Yeah.
Right? Like, this isn't a surprise. This is something you've just always known.
Right.
Oh, my parents loved me so much they found me, or whatever they chose to do. But because the longer they get longer, how do you not tell that it's a big secret?
Yeah.
And so I thought that was really well done. I think the idea of him showing them their powers and talking about it. And what else I love is this isn't one and done. You know, when they find out in a couple episodes about his super hearing.
Right.
And the idea, wait a minute, you're spying on us? And, you know, Lois brings up, remember how mad I was when I found out about this? So there's, you know,
it's
again,
some understandable trust issues.
There is. And it's, once again, it's a mature, and I won't put it, or Watchmen, but I will put it in the order of, like, Friday Night Lights. Or, you know, Everwood, or other really well-done family dramas that just happens to have someone who can fly, in this case.
Well, as someone who was adopted, I have a little bit of an insight into that. A little bit. So, you know, like my parents, you know, they waited till like I was about, 10 or 11 to tell me, because they wanted to make sure I was emotionally ready to handle that. And when they did, you know, they sat me down and very patient. But it was obviously a decision that I'm sure they had to grapple with over the years up until that point. So I get where Lois and Clark were coming from, you know, and obviously, you know, being Superman and being Lois, they've got other things going on. So probably just one of those that life gets in the way. You're trying to raise these kids, get them through school, get them educated, fed, you know, take care of them, whatnot. And, you know, you've got your job. Lois and Clark have their jobs at the Daily Planet. Clark is off being Superman, everything that involves. So it's probably just one of those, like, we're so busy, and so we'll get to it. And it probably keeps getting pushed back and pushed back. And so now it's time's up. The secret's out because the kids found Clark's spaceship. And so now they have to deal with the ramifications. And Clark finally is pushed into making that choice. So Nick, how about you? What did you make of the way that was handled in their discovery of their heritage?
First off, I am right with Jesse when it comes to the liar revealed trope, which has been done so many times in so many forms and shapes. And the Arrowverse and CW have been guilty of this multiple times of, I have a secret, I'm not going to tell you for like 5 seasons, and then basically one season before the finale, I'm going to lay it all out for you. So I'm so glad we got it out of the way almost immediately. And the spaceship thing, first off, kind of made me smile, because often my parents tend to tell me that I am from space, and that someday they will show me the spaceship where I came from.
Is this why you call yourself the spaceman in our Skype? Your Skype handle?
Exactly. Now the secret is out. That is where it comes from.
See, I picked up on that.
Yes, there you go. Joining the dots there, Charles, for sure. And granted, it did take a major accident at an outdoor party to push Clark over the edge to ultimately reveal himself. But I think it was about time, and I'm so glad they addressed it immediately. And I mentioned this show being more grounded in reality. The fact that they are not fanboying over the fact that their dad is a superhero was great. Because, you think to yourself,
Dad is Superman, awesome. Yeah, that kind of thing.
Yeah.
Yeah, they weren't going to be geeking out over it, because the fact that they immediately posed the question of, what else have you been hiding from us? Yes. So it opens those boxes of, what else haven't you told us?
Right.
So naturally they are kind of, upset and just wondering what else their father is hiding from them. And the sibling rivalry is beautiful because, myself being the eldest of 3 and having a younger brother especially, I very much kind of related to how Jordan and Jonathan would kind of take digs at each other, because my brother and I, we love each other to death, but we will take digs at each other, kind of like Jonathan and Jordan do.
Right.
So I very much got that kind of vibe, and I think it was so well played between the 2 actors. So that was fantastic. But yes, the whole spaceship thing, I think it was great how they handled it. And also, the reveal that, it's Jordan seemingly and not Jonathan, though we don't know, because for all we know, Jonathan might have something because,
he may get his powers at a later date. I agree. Yeah.
Because we had also seen him throw the football and it basically tearing through the rope through which the tire came clean off, and you're like, you could have trained all your life. You could be Peyton Manning for all I care, but I don't even know if Peyton Manning or Tom Brady could do that. So at that age anyway. So I'm just saying. But no, I thought it was. I just thought it was really great, and I loved how it was all handled, and just the dialogue is so good, man. I was just so happy. It's so
believable,
grown up and believable and mature. So I was so happy for sure. Definitely.
Yeah, Todd Helming.
I agree.
Todd Helming is writing. He wrote the first 2 episodes, so he really has a good feel for this, and I'm glad that he got this show off on a great start. So, Nick, since you brought up the powers that Jordan discovers, obviously there's a big event where the twins are trying to sort of impress Sarah by going up and fixing this router that for whatever reason is way up there, presumably because Clark thought, well, hey, I can fly, so I'll just put it way up here where it can get a better signal, right?
The super internet.
Yeah, exactly. So I'm sure that's why he did it. He figures, well, this thing should be up so it could get a better bandwidth across, more coverage. Yeah. But so I'll go up there and just fly up there and put it up there. But the twins, Jordan climbs up on this ladder and he falls, knocks over some pipes. And initially it looks like Jonathan rolls over on top of him to protect him. Yeah. So immediately, I was thinking, well, Jonathan must have powers because, he protected his brother. But ultimately, later, we see that Jordan has, heat vision and unleashes that during, this party that he's invited to, being confronted by the boyfriend of Sarah. So what did you guys make of how Jordan found out about his powers and the ramifications of this?
I think it was well played. It was an interesting way of introducing the whole thing of the powers. Yeah. And I think it was also Jesse had alluded to this earlier. The fact that, should we say the high school, not the jock, I say in the good sense, as in the football playing guy that Jonathan is, you would have expected him, as I'd mentioned, also the fact that the football kind of destroying the rope, making you think, okay, he's his father's son. He's inherited the Kryptonian things. The fact that it was Jordan, I loved. And the way the heat vision was done, I think it was actually done better than it was done in Supergirl, to be honest, which sometimes tends to be a little bit hit and miss sometimes.
Right.
But it was great, and I thought it was interesting that it came from a place of anger. The fact that it made, or maybe of being so tense and angry that it would make these
rage and frustration. And I think that's something that's probably going to be explored later on. I have theories, and I'll share those after we get through our episodes.
Okay. Yeah, and I know we've spent a lot of time on this first one, and I think we will jump through 2 and 3.
We will, but that's kind of. But this is the important stuff. Yeah,
we're setting the stuff. But as you guys earlier than I did, right? There is the great scene in The Boys, where Homelander's son doesn't have any powers till he gets angry. Yep. And then he displays that high emotion, kind of makes the adrenaline and whatever and bring it to work. So I thought that was really well done. Mm-hmm. I think it's a little quick, and when we get to episode 3 about how quickly Jordan's like, oh yeah, I got this handled. I understand, Dad, when I'm using it, when I'm not. Okay, that was quick.
Yeah. So now, obviously, Clark and Lois, they decide, well, I guess we're going to have to move here. And, after Clark mentions that how he feels like they need to move here because of his mom, Ma Kent saying that, come home, and that there was apparently a reason for that. And so it kind of gives them, especially with Jordan discovering that he has these powers, well, it's probably better to have him in a more remote small town than in a big metropolis where things might get really out of control. And it might be able to be a better place for him to learn how to control his powers, like Clark did.
I do appreciate the fact that they acknowledge this was a really big sacrifice for Jonathan.
Right.
I think it's a little unrealistic, and maybe Jonathan will be bitter later Because the reality is at 14 or 15, whatever out he is, picking you out of school and going to a new one,
Right.
you would not be that quickly like, okay, even though, the mild bitterness, there would be a lot more bitterness on there. But I do think that's not fun TV to watch.
Yeah.
And so I think they did at least a kind of glance to it and kind of moved on. But I think it's interesting to get them set in Smallville. And so I'm looking forward to seeing this.
Yeah. And the first episode concludes with this revelation that there's a Captain Luthor that has apparently taken a very active interest in going around to like nuclear facilities and bases, and he's got a plan. We don't know exactly what the plan is, but yeah, we find out that apparently his name is Captain Luthor, and we learn a little bit more in the following episodes. So I thought that was a very great way to kind of hook the viewer to come back for that second episode.
I totally agree. Yes.
All right. So second episode, since we're on that, The Heritage, which aired on March 2nd, 2021. Written again, like I said, Todd Helbing. Directed again by Lee Toland Krieger. And this is where we open with the Kents moving, doing the big move from Metropolis to Smallville. Clark's, going to have to do some repairs on the family farm. And now that, his sons know that he's Superman, he can just float around and, take care of, these really high-reaching places without the need for a ladder, which is pretty fun.
And lifting tractors over his head like it's nothing, as he does.
Exactly. So obviously there's a big adjustment period. You talked about, especially Jonathan, having to give up, of what it was apparently a very promising high school football career, where he was going to be quarterback at a freshman, which is pretty unheard of. And, he had a girlfriend there, so he's now having to Skype with his girlfriend. And I'm sure that will quickly fall by the wayside, as these things tend to do. Long-distance relationships, very, very hard to maintain, although Nick is doing a pretty good job of it. Just saying.
Well,
doing our best. I could totally relate to Jonathan in that moment. When you have a girlfriend with a traveling girlfriend, you become best friends with Skype, Zoom, you name it.
Yeah,
That's
exactly.
just how it goes.
You do what you got to do,
together.
right?
Exactly.
yes.
So there's obviously some frustrations. So what did you guys make of the adjustments as the Kents move into Smallville and set up on the Kent farm? Jesse?
So I loved the idea of, they're both adjusting. Like, Jordan can't even go to school because they're worried about him, which would tick me off. Jonathan doesn't get the playbook, and he's trying not to make a big deal about it, but now he's behind, and he's already resentful. Like, hey, we already got a quarterback. So that's just enough teen drama, that you kind of that's good for,
But it doesn't get bogged down in it.
Exactly. And like, my hope is this is a show that a family can watch together.
Right.
Like you can watch this and kind of enjoy that together. And
it's something for all ages.
Yeah, and I think that is something that you want to have happen. You want to see that. So I like that back and forth. I'm a little worried about Clark no longer has his Daily Planet salary. Mm-hmm. In this world, we've not established that he is a professional, been a brilliant novelist or has written a lot of books. So he has an independent, like in some, continuities.
Right.
Lois no longer has her salary. But
they are trying to get the farm up and running so they could get income from the farm.
So one of the things that we brought up back in the day of the old Superman comics is, wow, it's amazing how much crops Jonathan and Clark could produce from the Clark farm. And if you think about farm, a lot of the expense on a farm is labor. Well, you now have 1.5 super individuals
Right.
that you could. So I'm hoping they say something about, wow, you've really been able to produce a lot of, corn or hay or whatever, that the farm quickly becomes profitable because, on the balance sheet, there's not a long item about labor because Clark's able to do it himself.
But they're going to have to be careful because they don't want to expose their secrets. Make people suspicious of, like, how did you do all this?
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. So we'll see what happens. Nick, what did you make of the family adjusting to life in Smallville?
Well, understandably, going from a huge reality metropolis, literally metropolis like Metropolis, and going to a small town like Smallville can definitely be very traumatic for multiple reasons. Be it
especially for teenage
young
boys,
adult,
right?
Exactly. One on the side of the teenage boys who obviously probably have a certain reality set up, be it friends, be it careers, be it girlfriends, and what have you. And I think probably Jonathan suffers more than Jordan because I don't know how much of a, shall we say, social life Jordan possibly had in Metropolis, if any, because he seems to be more of the recluse, if you will. Yeah. Granted, he has excellent taste in music and in video games, and I would hang by Jordan's room.
Yeah, apparently
all
he plays
day.
Injustice 2, where he's got Raiden fighting Superman, and he's playing Raiden. So.
Correct. Yes. So the man, I'm a big fan of beat 'em up games and of heavy metal. So he's blasting the metal and playing beat 'em up games. I'm like, Jordan, I'll come hang with you any day of the week, buddy. You just say the word, I'm there.
Yeah. And by the way, Injustice 2 is about an evil Superman that becomes a tyrant after the death of Lois Lane at the hands of the Joker. So, kind of a little bit of a deliberate nod there, I think.
I have a feeling they are kind of pulling from the Injustice storyline, indeed, and I actually own both Injustice games and still play them to this day when I need to kind of de-stress because there's nothing better than beating the crap out of somebody on screen, not for real, folks, screen.
It's okay if you do it digitally.
Exactly. It's a victimless crime if you do it on screen, just against the computer. But that said, and I think it's traumatic also for Lois as well, because obviously, she's a star reporter in Metropolis, and she finds herself now in a small town where, she's also looking for a job. We do find out later that she does literally quit her job at the Daily Planet, and so now she finds herself in a small town reality where you have a tiny paper where what are you going to talk about?
With one employee, Chrissy Beppo, who we're introduced
exactly, who's the owner, publisher,
janitor, the whole 9 yards. She does everything. And I wouldn't know how she does all the printing by herself, but that's just me. She deliver the papers too by herself? How does that work?
More power to her. She must probably live on caffeine and nicotine, probably, because I don't know what she does, or energy drinks. But and you think, what are you going to publish in this stories? Mrs. Betty Jones's cow gave birth to 5, calves today. Joy. What the heck is going to talk about?
And but, I think it's in the 3rd episode, jumping ahead, right, where they want to say, well, here's a story you should do. And I'm like, well, I don't really do puff pieces. And, kind of like, well, here we do a little bit of everything.
Here those sell papers is what she's kind of saying.
Exactly. Yeah, and I think that's going to be one of the good things, that they will find a balance. And I think Lois will remember some of the joys of not just bringing down evil dictators, but the joy of kind of also reporting more day of life things. So I'm looking forward to that.
I don't know if that's going to happen. I think she's going to get really frustrated with that, and she's going to be turned to writing a novel and selling those.
Oh, okay. Oh, nice.
Yeah.
Okay.
It would not surprise me. But also at the same time, Clark is in a very tough situation as well, because, he doesn't have a job and he doesn't know how he's going to, turn things around and save the farm. And also, they're kind of keeping an eye on what is going on the financial side of things, because it seems like things are a little bit shady there. And I don't know why I had this image of Ultron from the MCU appearing, looking at them going, finance is weird.
Which he does. But you notice, this is a Superman with problems. real life
Yeah, that's
problems
what I
that
love
people
about
can
it.
relate to.
Yes,
So
I
so
agree.
essentially, it's not, this is not like, oh, Superman. Superman gets this criticism a lot, like, oh, I can't identify with him because he's so perfect.
Hmm.
It's like, no, he's the most real person you know. He's the person that you want to be because he has these problems just like everybody else. But
They are
he,
doing
but he, but
exactly
he
what
just happens to have superpowers on top of it.
without trying to copy what the MCU did, which
Yeah,
tend to
yeah,
fail from them. They are
he's not Peter Parker.
no, but they are taking someone from the MCU playbook of make the characters reliable or relatable, make them flawed, give them feet of clay. Folks will gravitate to that. And you pointed out rightfully out, Charles, there are folks out there who just don't get Superman because, like, he has all the powers in the world. There's nothing that can stop him. Here you bring him down to your level, which is why folks like us love Superman so much, because he can be incredibly relatable if written properly. So I love
Exactly.
that we have this whole thing of folks dealing with the trauma of the move in different ways. So I definitely enjoyed how that was handled.
All right. So one of the big things that happens in this episode is Clark takes Jordan to the Fortress of Solitude to learn a little bit more about his powers that he displayed and try to get some answers. And in the process, introduces Jordan to what Jordan likes to refer to as holograms. So
Yes.
Jor-El is, kind of like, very much in the, the Marlon Brando in Superman 1978. We get to see a holographic representation, and we get to see the new Fortress of Solitude. This continuities, the Arrowverse version of the Fortress of Solitude in this version, which is noticeably different from what we've seen on Supergirl, which I thought was kind of interesting. It's much more of a natural crystal-like formation, and it had a very fresh take, something we hadn't seen really in anything before, and much more of an ice cavern almost. And I want to get everybody's thoughts on the introduction of Jor-El and the Jor-El's assessment that Jordan will never be like Clark, which obviously doesn't sit very well with Jordan.
Yeah,
So,
I thought that was a nice twist. I know that the fortress is kind of like the inside of the TARDIS. You have to change it around.
yeah, it's got a new desktop theme. Yes.
Yes. I would have liked a little more. I always have, and once again, this goes to my Silver Age background, right?
Yeah.
I've always liked the idea that the Fortress of Solitude is where Superman goes to unwind. And so therefore it should have a somewhat homey feel. Now it may be a very different kind of home, but
So
not
like a
just,
mini bar with like a foosball table and
at least his big
a big
of course,
60-inch
I would
flat
love,
screen on the wall.
well, no,
And a Superman cave.
the huge
I want that.
the huge gold diary that Superman used to write with his heat vision in his native Krypton, remember?
Yeah.
Right.
And then the Jor-El and Kara, Laura, statue,
Laura,
and all these things. Yeah. So no, I mean that's fine. I think too, because he's all excited he's able to share this, and then the idea that hologramps is like, nope, maybe, I'm not saying he doesn't have any powers at all, but, on a scale of 1 to 10, he's maybe a 3. Hey, and that's just very disappointing. And, and then Clark is like, oh, we'll retest you. It's going to be okay. So that was some nice dynamics of some uncomfortableness. And, you don't know what's going to happen. Just like we suspect that Jonathan may end up having latent powers later. We don't know. It depends on where they take the story. Mm-hmm. But I wouldn't bet against that.
No, not at all. Not at all. I think that, this could go in a lot of different directions, that could turn out to be that Jordan, gets his powers fully powered later, that because of having that hybrid physiognomy of Kryptonian and human DNA, that maybe his body is still changing because remember, he's still growing. He's still developing. So, that maybe that will change as things go on or something else will happen. So, and maybe same thing will happen with Jonathan as it turns out later. So, just Nick, what about you? What did you make of the introduction of Jor-El and Jordan's reaction to being told that you're like the Diet Coke of Kryptonian, 1 calorie Kryptonian, not Kryptonian enough.
I like that.
That's from
as I
Austin
mentioned,
Powers. I totally stole that.
Yes.
Yeah.
I thought it was, as you were mentioning, Charles, I think it was fresh and new, but at the same time, when it came to the character of Jor-El himself, I saw a little bit of an amalgam, if you will, of Marlon Brando and also Russell Crowe from Man of Steel as well.
Yes.
I think it was a nice blending of the two. Because, shall we say, in looks, he did remind me a little bit more of Russell Crowe, obviously, because you're not going to get the spit curl that Brando so lovely.
The beard.
In the beard, yeah. It was more kind of, that's why I thought it was kind of they tried to mix the two together. And the Fortress of Solitude somewhat looked more like the one from the Donner films, obviously, in a more, obviously, updated fashion. And I love the Donner films, with a passion. And so that was a nice touch. But yeah, I think holograms is probably wrong, as is often the case, because sometimes I have tons of respect for the older generations and our, should we say, elderly folks, but sometimes they don't get the new generation, and so it's this, and it shows. And I think it would be great that he is proven wrong. That because how does you can do a molecular thing, but what if it's just is invisible to those kind of scans, and it's just that he can turn it on and turn it off and make it seem like he has zero power, yet it could actually be an upgraded version of Superman once he comes into his own, because we've seen that he has the potential. I think it reminds me a little bit of Magneto in the Fox films when he was a kid in the X-Men Fox films, where he wasn't able to kind of turn it on and turn it off, and obviously it took emotion for his powers to come out, and then we saw what a highly powered mutant Magneto became. So I think it could almost be a case of that, kind of like a young Magneto from in the DC world, who just doesn't understand his powers yet, but has so much potential, which his grandfather just does not see. And I'm sure they're going to have. I'm sure it's all going to come to head. I have theories on what's going to happen later down the line,
right?
But I'm sure that it's not going to be just he just happens to have heat vision and stuff. It's not going to be brushed under the rug. I doubt it very strongly.
Well, my thing is, what is Jor-El basing this on? Because there has never been a Kryptonian-human hybrid.
Exactly.
So there's no basis for this. There's no data to support anything. This is all brand new territory. You don't know what's going to happen, especially, like I said, now that Jordan's continuing to develop.
It's just an X-ray that he goes by. That's all it kind of is, really.
Yeah.
In scans.
A scan, yeah.
Yeah, and the great...
You got the Kryptonian MRI, basically.
Yeah, those Super Son comics from the 70s that, were set kind of imaginary tales and kind of told, right, where the son of Superman kind of had half the powers of Superman. So it is,
like essentially like he's diluted. His gene pool is diluted by the human DNA. So he's like 50% as opposed to a full 100%.
Yeah. So I think it's cool. As I said, I think it sets up a nice dynamic, that, Jordan thinks he's special and then he's told he's not special, and he can't go to school. And then Jonathan's bitter because, I didn't get to go to the super cave. I didn't get to go visit. I didn't meet, holograms. And I'm stuck at school, and they're punking me because I didn't have a playbook, and so both of them had a lousy day in their own way.
But they're good. Like, thankfully, it does seem like there's an underlying love still there. It's not like
absolutely.
Because Jonathan isn't he's not overly bitter about it. He's just annoyed at the moment. He's frustrated.
Yes.
But so is Jordan, as it turns out. So they're both kind of frustrated with what's going on.
And I think that's one of the things. There's a lot of things I love about the show, but I will keep going back to, so far they're doing a great job of showing the sibling, push-pull love, yet, as Nick was talking about with his, and my brother is 10 years younger than me, but we have a little bit of that as well, where we both adore each other, but also we can be incredibly irritated by the other one.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. But one of the other highlights I loved from this episode was Lois going down to the city council meeting and having a little confrontation with Morgan Edge, who we finally get to meet in person. So, guys, what did you make of, and I'll start with you, Nick, on this one. What did you make of Lois essentially calling out Morgan Edge in front of the whole town, and then Edge kind of flipping it on her at the end to kind of make her look like the villain for trying to take away the jobs that he's bringing to Smallville?
So correct me if I'm wrong, Charles, but I mean, I recall that we had the great Adrian Pastar play Morgan Edge in Supergirl.
Yes, we did.
So I'm thinking to myself, correct me or let me know or remind me, is that Morgan Edge ostensibly still alive? Did they ever kill him off in Supergirl?
No, they didn't. But keep in mind, though, we're now in a post-crisis continuity.
Right.
So consequently, this gives them an ability to do a lot of recasting, I think.
True, because they seem to be playing fast and loose with their recasting. Looking at you, Black Lightning. But
and right now, Superman and Lois is isolated at the moment from the rest of the Arrowverse.
Yeah, it is kind of in its own bubble, so I guess that stands to reason. Grant, though, I have to admit that I'm a big fan of Adrian Pasdar. I mean, he's a fantastic actor. Right. I loved him on Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. I loved him as Morgan Edge in Supergirl, and he's done so many great things. And I was kind of hoping we would get
Heroes.
Adrian Pasdar again.
That's where I got to become a fan of his on Heroes.
And I was kind of hoping we'd get him again because he was a great Morgan Edge in Supergirl. So I was kind of hoping he'd reprise his role. But like you said, this does give them an opportunity to recast these characters. It was a very tense moment. I really enjoyed it because even though the room was full of other journalists and what have you, it was all about Lois and Morgan. And I love that kind of in a crowd.
Yeah.
You could almost have been like in a comic where everybody's kind of whitened out and the only two highlighted characters almost looking at each other from across the room with hatred are Lois and Morgan. And I thought that was fabulous.
Yeah.
Not to mention you immediately get from the get-go that this Morgan Edge is nasty as all get out, and he's going to definitely he's put things in motion. I think he's going to be a very interesting villain to watch.
Yeah, he is. He's very much in the businessman Lex Luthor vibe. And,
correct. Yes.
Obviously, and I love the moment where as soon as Lois says, "Well, I have a question," Jordan and Jonathan are off on the other side, just face palming, going, "Oh God!"
They're like, "Oh,
yeah,
Mom's
we know
gonna
because they know what's coming. Like they
Yes.
know exactly what
like,
her
Mom's going to do that thing that she
mom's
does.
going to do. Mom's going to do her Lois Lane thing.
Yes.
And it obviously turns out, but I thought it was interesting that Edge kind of turned it back on her to make her look like the bad guy, trying to take those jobs away from Smallville. So, Jesse, what about you? What was your reaction to
I
this?
think that was a great scene. And, Lois can't help but, she's, to mix her metaphors, her spider sense is going off. Something
Her super
is
sense
not,
is going
yes,
off.
Yes. And she's like, oh, man, I got to figure this out. And I loved the interactions. You're right. The two boys going, oh, no.
Here's Mom.
And, yeah.
Mom is embarrassing
what are we
us
gonna do?
again.
Yes. And, and once again, the idea that, Lana's husband, is so wanting good things to happen. Kyle is just
He's all in on Morgan Edge.
So he's buying, he's drinking the Fresca, and he just wants to believe this.
Yes, I see what you did there.
He wants to believe this no matter what.
Nice boyfriend reference.
Even if you show him facts on why this isn't work, he's going to twist it. Well, that's because they were trying to unionize, and then he wouldn't. If you just behave, everything's going to be okay. If you don't make waves, everything will be fine. Yeah. And he's lying to himself, but that's all he's got. And I think that's an interesting twist, because will you give up your soul to save a small town? or is it worth the cost?
Yeah, we'll see. We're gonna have to see because eventually he's gonna have to come to this realization about what Morgan
Yes.
Edge is up to. I'm sure that'll be down the road, but
Right.
for right now, yeah, he's totally drinking the Fresca, as Jesse likes to phrase it. So I totally agree
Yeah.
there. An F Fresca, by the way.
Okay, there you go.
So another boys reference. All right. Last thing about this episode I really want to talk about. Obviously, there's this great fight between Captain Luthor and Superman. Just a tremendous throwdown. It goes all the way up into space and then back down. And Captain Luthor stabs Clark with like a kryptonite knife. It breaks off the blade in Clark's chest, and and Clark is plummeting down. It's just a great sequence. I love that sequence. And then ultimately, because of that beatdown, that he's going to have to rebuild his ship and suit, and we get this amazing flashback to and an explanation for Captain Luthor as we find out that he's from an alternate Earth where Superman has gone evil. So essentially, it's like the Injustice game. That
it's an Injustice storyline.
It's very much that, and also, part of me was wondering, well, are they doing Earth 3 with the Crime Syndicate of America and Ultraman? But it does seem more like Injustice. That seems to be where they're borrowing from this. The idea that Superman has gone evil and has become this evil tyrant that must be defeated at all costs. So Captain Luthor sees himself as a hero. See, so, again, it's the villain seeing himself as the hero of the story. So Jesse, what did you make of Captain Luthor, that big, great fight, and also the find out that Captain Luthor sees himself as the hero trying to stop evil Superman and stop Kal-El from becoming evil Superman on this Earth, and it wants Sam Lane's help in doing that.
So my frustration is, we haven't seen why. We know what's happened in his world, but what he is just assuming this is going to happen on this world.
Yeah.
Right. And so I don't remember the character's name on Supergirl, the one who ended up being the crap. Now, never mind. There was we saw where every time he tried to do something, they did a flashback where every time he tried to do something right, the business ended up getting away, and he ended up being like U.S. hero, the radical right, superhero. I don't remember
Agent
the name.
Liberty.
Yeah, Agent Liberty, right. Where they showed how he got to that point. We haven't seen anything in this world.
He saw himself as the hero, and
yes, he did. Yeah, and so I that's my only downside is I know that there may have been an evil Superman in a different world, but I would have liked for them to have something, and they may still do this, to show what this world's Kal-El has done to make him think that he's on that path. Obviously, since I'm a big fan of the the Boy Scout and, the Man of Steel, I'm like, no, he couldn't do anything wrong. But to have seen a different side of it, I think will make the series better, and I hope they do that. Very interesting that we get a new Luthor.
Yes.
And from an alternate
the first
world,
African-American live-action Lex Luthor.
Yes,
it's a big
absolutely.
deal, even though he is from a parallel universe, not this universe.
Right. Yeah.
That's how we can explain why he doesn't look like John Cryer.
Exactly.
And Nick, how about you? What was your reaction to Captain Luthor in this episode?
Well, the fight also I really, really enjoyed. I thought it was well choreographed. I thought it was well staged, and I very much enjoyed it. It didn't overstay its welcome. And the whole concept, I definitely agree with you, Charles. I think it partly is taken from the Injustice storyline, and I've actually played through the whole story. I'm not going to give anything away when it comes to that, but
you might as well. I mean, it's out there, so you could spoil it. It's a video game, for crying out loud.
It is. Well, yeah, because you obviously you can play the actual campaign where you actually go through the whole story, and it's literally our heroes and also villains kind of bonding together to defeat this tyrannical Superman. And Lex Luthor plays a big part in that, when it comes to that particular story. Also, it may remind me a little bit of the fever dream that Bruce Wayne had I believe it was just in Batman v Superman, where he finds that Superman is a tyrant. Granted, that could be more his fear in the Snyderverse of Superman becoming a tyrant, but it did kind of make me think of that fever dream that he has as well. Because it seemed like that was what they were.
Yeah,
it's what they were maybe alluding to in the Batman v Superman film. Could be, but no, I really enjoyed this, and I think that in this case, unlike Agent Liberty, I think the guy actually has a point. Granted, he is just assuming that because his Superman is evil, this one is going to be evil too, and so obviously he supposes erroneously, to use a "Singing in the Rain" quote. But I think that's the whole thing. And obviously, him and Sam Lane on his world were best buddies, and they were fighting Superman together. And so that's why he wants to get Sam on his side, just like the Sam on his Earth was. And it's going to be interesting to see how this changes maybe Sam Lane's perception of Superman and of Clark in this show. Because now he's being told this stuff, it might give Sam food for thought and might make him a little more wary of Clark. And so I think it will play interesting into the whole psychology of it all. And I'm definitely looking forward to seeing more of this character. I think he's going to be very complex. I think that I am assuming that eventually it will probably end up that they're going to duke it out, Superman and him. He's going to be on the point of death and saying, "You are a hero," and his eyes roll back, and that's the end of that. But it would be very, very upsetting if that's the way it ended.
Yeah, hopefully we'll get something not so predictable, right?
Or we get an alliance between him and Lex Luthor fighting the other villain that we will be talking about shortly.
Yes.
That could happen as well.
That could very well happen, and it's very interesting. I think everybody needs to pay attention to that tag, that little Superman insignia badge that Captain Luthor gave this Earth Sam Lane, which has the number 7734, or hey, if you turn it upside down, like if you had a calculator, it reads hell.
Hell.
Yeah, so which is obviously this is a nod to Project 7734 from Superman Comics, which was going to be one of my trivia things, but I don't know if we're going to have time to get to it, but maybe we'll talk about it in a future episode, so stay tuned. But somewhere if we ever get to talk Superman and Lois again. But all right, Superman and Lois, Episode 3, The Perks of Not Being a Wallflower. That was just aired last week, March 9th, 2021. Written by Brent Fletcher, directed by Gregory Smith, who's notable because he directed Part 5 of the Crisis on Infinite Earths crossover event for the Arrowverse. So in this one, we get to see the Kents painting their house, and Lois is, they want the kids to be very mindful of their actions so they don't reveal Clark's secret identity. And Jordan, after seeing Jonathan getting pushed around by the team because, hey, Jonathan was foolish enough to kiss the girlfriend of one of the main guys on the football team, so that therefore the football team is taking out the punishment on Jonathan. Jordan decides, well, hey, I'm going to join the football team, which is very uncharacteristic for him. But now that he realizes he has superpowers, this is something he feels he kind of wants to do. And in the process, he kind of gets a little bit of payback on the guys roughing up Jonathan and the guys that have been giving him grief as well. So what did you make of Jordan joining the football team and getting a little payback by dragging all those football players and members of his team around the field like they were nothing?
So we're going to accept for now that Jordan, at his word, that he can tell when he's controlling his powers and when he can't. And I thought that Jonathan's point was like, okay, maybe he just, whatever little bit of juice he has just makes him where he's comparable to someone else.
Yeah.
I really like the idea that, at the end, he learns he originally did this to revenge, right? And it's always a girl, right?
Yeah, always
which is
a girl.
cliche. It's always a girl.
Yeah.
But no, he learned something about that. And, when he, hits the guy, and I know it's a cliche, but the reality is often with males, like, they'll fight, and then, like, after the fight, like, oh, okay, let's move on, right? And, like, when he helped him up and said, I should not have done that, I should not have kissed her, and like, oh, okay, and kind of moved on. I love the interaction between Clark and his son and talking about, he's freaking Superman, and he still regrets not getting to play baseball. Right?
Yeah.
And I love the humanity of that.
Because his father didn't want him playing baseball. Or like, Jonathan Kent said in Superman 1978, you have all these great powers, and you were here for a reason, and it's not to score touchdowns.
Yes, I thought of that line as well. And to see him, do you really want to do this? And then, we kind of get the little goofy, at the end where, Clark's going to be an assistant coach, going to help volunteer.
Yeah.
I
so
just
he can
think
keep an eye on the boys.
Yeah, exactly. And so I just love that. I love that what could have been a cliche, they ended up doing really well. And this way, Jonathan and Jordan are helping to fit in. So I was very, very happy with how they've handled this.
It also gives them some income, doesn't it, if he's an assistant coach?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Absolutely. He may be
well,
just
no,
be
but there
volunteer,
he
yes.
says, no, but there what clinches it is that Lois says he'll do it for free.
Ah, okay, good point. Good point.
Yeah, because the coach is like, you should have applied earlier, etc. And Lois chimes in saying he'll do it for free, and the guy's like, you should have opened with that.
Yes,
that's
yes.
right. It's good, great observation, Nick. Great. So Nick, what did you make of Jordan Foote joining the football team, which I really hope is named the Smallville Crows? I really want that. I really want that.
It's there. It's an open net goal.
It's right
seriously.
there. They have S's
an empty net
on their helmets, but they didn't say what the team name is. So it's got to be the Crows, right? Hopefully.
I'm hoping so too, because as I said, that's an empty net goal. Really,
right,
it literally
yes,
is.
Right.
It's right there. Yes.
Yes.
Yeah. So I'm really hoping that will happen. Look, I kind of am with Jordan in the sense of wanting to get his own back, and granted it's kind of for selfish reasons, if you will, and it reminded me a little bit of in Marvel when Spider-Man, kind of first uses his powers to go into the wrestling ring and use his powers to get money, if you will, rather
I got
than
you for
his
3 minutes. 3 minutes of playtime.
Yeah. Yes. Cue Randy Savage, exactly.
Oh yeah.
But no, I mean, I have to admit, I kind of enjoyed seeing Jordan kind of bowling these terrible high school jocks over, because I guess from a geek perspective, it's kind of like you kind of have to stick it to the high school jock now and again. So it was
right.
kind of satisfying.
This is Revenge of the Nerd, essentially. Yeah.
Very well said. And no, that's what was fun. Granted, okay, he has zero interest in football and he's just doing it for that reason. But look, before all this happened, I mean, after that happened, him and Clark had a talk. And he's like, if you can keep it under control, I'll let you do it as long as I coach and can keep an eye on you. So it worked out for both of them. And I thought it was interesting that they mentioned the fact of Superman playing baseball or Clark playing baseball, because in the early Action comics, I believe there's actually an issue where Superman does play a football game, but for other reasons, as he basically masquerades as a football player and actually goes onto the field and everything. I can't remember the storyline itself, but it was an early Action comics issue, the Siegel and Schuster era. And there's actually one where you see Superman playing football, and it was fantastic. I don't know anything about football. And Jesse, someday I'm actually going to have to take you aside and have you explain the basics to me. I don't know what a playbook is, and I had no idea what was going on when it came to this, because I'm used to playing, soccer here, and we don't need a playbook for that. Just get on the field and do what you have to do.
I can help you with that as well, Nick. So
yes, we can.
We could broaden your horizons in that regard,
yes,
I'm sure.
I would appreciate it, because I had no idea what was going on. The fact that he didn't have a playbook was like, so what? He can just show up on the field, can't he? Evidently not.
Yes.
But that's my ignorance of football.
Because it's all these coordinated plays. So consequently, if he doesn't have the playbook, he doesn't know the the moves he's
Oh,
supposed
the
to
team
make.
strategy.
Yeah, the
basically.
strategy,
Team
exactly,
strategy. See,
exactly.
like,
Okay,
yeah,
okay.
and so similar to like your forwards or
Your
defenders
battle plans, essentially.
on your for America for European football, right? There is set designed where they're supposed to go and what they're going to do, and like when to pass the ball and when to not. So that's what it is.
Right.
If you and then once again, my
Ted Lasso.
recommendation,
I'm waiting for the
watch
Ted Lasso.
Lasso.
Reference.
Yes,
There
Ted
it was.
Lasso.
Okay.
There is a scene
All
where
right.
he talks about doing trick plays.
Right. Okay.
I
No,
was
other than
wondering,
that,
waiting for that to come in. Yes.
Thank you, Charles. Yes.
Yeah, and I did like that at the end of the day, Jordan and Sarah's now ex-boyfriend actually patched things up.
Yeah.
Because obviously, Jordan knocks him down, and then, he and actually it's Jordan who apologizes to him for saying, no, sorry about the kiss and all the craziness that's been going on. And he brings up, and it seems like things might be okay from here onwards between the two of them, which I thought was a nice little resolution. And it wasn't going to be an ongoing rivalry between the two, which could have gotten tiresome in the long run.
And I'm sure that's going to get frustrating a little bit for Jonathan, because now here's Jordan, excuse me, now being better at Jonathan's life than he is. Yeah. Because Jordan is now being accepted by the football team. He's very successful at it. And, this is something that, Jonathan wanted to do. And we'll have to see how that plays out.
He's stealing his brother's thunder. It kind of reminded me a little bit of that Simpsons episode where Bart learns to become a jazz drummer, and so he basically humiliates Lisa, who's basically loved jazz since the day she was born.
Right.
And suddenly Bart starts drumming, and he's better than she is at what she loves. Yeah. So I can very much see that thing of, I can't blame Jonathan for being upset, because I've lived and breathed football all my life. Here comes my brother. He's never played in his life. He's got the powers, and so he kind of puts me to shame. So I can't really blame Jonathan for being a little bit sour about it.
But on the plus side, Jonathan is on a skilled position, and Jordan is on more of a defensive lineman, so not quite as a showy place. I do think I'm just really glad that they're not going the Flash Thompson route, at least for now, that he didn't need that obnoxious, character, and so I think that's going to be good.
Well, essentially, it was like Whitney Fordman on Smallville, season 1.
Yes, exactly.
That obnoxious jock that was giving Clark, hassling him and giving him a bad time.
Yeah.
Because he was interested in Lana. So.
Right.
Yeah, it did feel like kind of a rehash a little bit. So the only other thing I really want to talk about this episode, I know that for the sake of time I'm kind of trimming this, but Lois finds someone, this woman, what's her name, Sharon Powell, who regarding Morgan Edge's previous dealings. But interestingly, this out of nowhere, there's this guy named Subject 11 who, like I said, was played by Daniel Cudmore, Colossus. And he shows up essentially trying, threatening to kill Lois and Sharon. So it's up to Clark. It's Superman. He comes in, saves the day, throws down with this guy. This guy has pretty considerable super strength, gives Clark a good run for his money. But it's a
nice fight.
But it's a great fight, and because it's, Clark is more experienced, he's able to defeat him ultimately with some freeze breath, and then using that to hold him in place while he lands this knockout blow. But and then at the end, Subject 11 tries to leave town with asking the person on whatever the end of the phone was that this character named Leslie Larr, who was this very assistant of Morgan Edge that we saw very briefly when in the previous episode where Lois was walking out after resigning her role at the Daily Planet, that apparently this Leslie Larr kills Subject 11 with heat vision, and then she calls up Morgan Edge and tells him, it's done, I'll call a team. And that's our big cliffhanger at the end of the third episode. So it looks like we've got another Kryptonian already on Earth. And this episode was also interesting because we already broke away from the Captain Luthor storyline. So there's other storylines going on as well. So what did everybody think about that? So, Nick, I'll start with you first on this one.
It's interesting. We have a lot of moving pieces on the board, and it's going to be curious. It's going to be interesting to see how they manage all these pieces they now have put in motion, and how they're going to devote attention to these folks. That's why I think maybe for simplicity's sake, it might just end up being Captain Luthor teaming up with Superman to defeat this greater evil represented by Leslie Law. And I thought it was a great way to end the episode. And I'm sure, like you, Charles, and Jesse as well, I have quite a few theories on who this Leslie Law is.
I have one as well.
It makes you think, because
go ahead.
I'm if I may.
Yeah, go ahead.
I don't want to.
Go ahead. If you got it, go ahead.
I'm thinking she's either the Leslie Law, i.e. the Kryptonian scientist.
There you go. There you go. Yeah.
Who's incredibly jealous, who knows a Supergirl villain mostly. Yeah. So
this really obscure Supergirl villain from Silver Age Action Comics that apparently tried to replace Supergirl she was from the Bottle City of Kandor. She was jealous of Supergirl, so she tried to replace her and did this brainwashing thing where she made Supergirl take over her life. So they essentially swapped lives until Krypto shows up and figures, well, hey, you're not Supergirl. It saves the day because it's a Silver Age. So essentially it's well, is that who they're using here? And does that mean that they're Kandorians in play here?
Well, I believe we have had a mention of Kandor, at least in Supergirl. Granted, this is for now it's its own show for now. I mean, It doesn't have all the ties, so they could go a whole different direction. Or alternatively, it could even be the Lara from Earth 31, who was the daughter of Superman and Wonder Woman.
Right.
They could even go that route too. But my money is mainly more on Leslie Law, even though it is a very obscure character to use, and kudos if they're taking such an obscure character. But it's definitely going to be fun to watch. And I was intrigued from the get-go. I was like, wow, they're really dipping deep if that's the case.
I think they have to, because that name is just way too similar to Leslie Law.
Mm-hmm.
I love the LL. As a Silver Age fan, that is something that is.
That's a big thing. Yes,
that is a big thing. I agree that, one of the things that we talked about during the Byrne reboot is he thought it was important to be the last son of Krypton, and he wiped away the others. And I do realize that sometimes the Silver Age, there was so many people who survived Krypton, right? So it could be crazy. I get that. But I think if you have the Bottle City of Kandor, if you have other survivors, we do know, at least in theory, there is a Supergirl, and they have appeared on Supergirl, so at least this. I think it's going to be very interesting. I love also the time period, right? We haven't talked about that, but in Supergirl, they had no kids, and they go off to go spend time together, and now, so this has been a big gap. Years, so we don't know how they reboot it. Very interesting
in
villain
this post-crisis
world. Great villain. I was very surprised. I'm like, oh, wait a minute, where did that come from?
It's a deep dive, like Nick said.
Yeah. So I'm really, really happy about that. So
yeah, it is. It's very interesting. And that Subject 11, if you're wondering about that guy, so that Subject with a K instead of a C.
Yeah.
And I think that's a reference to Subject 17, who is also Subject with a K, who was this alien that got eventually experimented on by the Soviets and turned into a weapon that essentially got forgotten about. So that they fight, Superman and him, and then they have to to do that. So, Jesse, I guess you're going to have to go. So, what did you want to say goodbye to everybody?
Yeah, thank you, Charles. I appreciate it. Sorry, we had a little bit of scheduling conflict, and
It's all right. I know we ran long. I was trying hard to get through this.
No. This was
on me, folks. And I do apologize.
No. I just want to summarize. I think this is a great 3-episode start.
Yes.
I hope that maybe I can convince you to in 4 or 5 weeks, or maybe 10 weeks after Falcon and Winter Soldier, maybe we look back again when it comes back and redwell.
There's only 6 episodes of Falcon and Winter Soldier.
We would have space before other things for sure.
So,
I was just looking at the calendar. Yeah.
So I really appreciate that. Yes, I'm taking a break, listeners. As much as I'm looking forward to Falcon and Winter Soldier, I'm going to take a little break, but my 2 brothers are carrying on. They will be here every week talking about it. But I didn't want you to think they like, hey, what happened to Jesse? I've got some other stuff going on, but I will be back in the future. Charles and Nick are always very sweet about, hey, the door is open and the ride is free. And so they always want me back. So thank you guys so much. I appreciate it.
We'll just put you down in the Kent cellar with Clark's spaceship, and until it's time for you to come back.
Sounds great. Thanks, guys.
Take care, Jesse.
Jesse.
Bye-bye. Thanks again. All right. So as we sadly say goodbye to Jesse, who had to leave us early for another podcast.
And I do have to personally apologize for that, folks, because I was actually recording a podcast today about Hollywoodland, believe it or not, which is all about George Reeves. So it's sort of the murder of George Reeves. So it was all about Superman today. So I want to this is on me, folks. Twitter for people, etc. If you want to take pot shots, I'm here because it's on me on this one because I ran late on the review of that. So it's my fault if Jesse wasn't able to stay on longer. So that's.
Well, I think your gold standard co-host helped as well. So I don't think it's just you.
True.
I'm sure because knowing that my Ghostwood and Drum Cinema co-host is one of those, I can very easily see that happening. All right. So anyway, Nick, since we didn't get Jesse, was there anything else about these 3 episodes that we didn't cover? I know we talked a lot. So
I really enjoyed these 3, and I'm kind of gutted that I believe at episode 5 we're going to kind of have to hold our hold our horses and wait patiently while Supergirl kind of takes over the mantle of the House of El before Superman can come back. But so far I'm really loving
COVID shakes fist. Yes.
Yes. See, the ultimate villain in all this is COVID. He is the ultimate villain. No
surprise there, right?
Exactly. No, I have really been enjoying it so far. These first 2 episodes have really kind of rekindled my interest because at first I was like, oh, another Superman show. What are they going to do? Is it going to be a rehash? And I'm so happy to say that I'm loving this deeply and so much. And did you have any final closing thoughts, Charles?
I totally agree with you. 3 episodes so far. They've been very strong. They've come hard right out of the gate. I can't wait to see where they go next. We get 2 more, and then we're going to have to wait a little bit. So it'd be interesting to see where episodes 4 and 5 go. And the good thing is that we know there's going to be a season 2. So this show is not going away anytime soon, thankfully. And it deserves to stay around. It's a very well-made show. I mean, I love the production values. I love that we actually have an Arrowverse show with cinematography. How awesome is that? They're taking advantage of this farm setting and really embracing it, so you get some really gorgeous shots in this. So I love that, and I can't wait to see more of what happens to our Kent family down the road.
I'm really looking forward to yes. And as you said, the production values have definitely stepped up. We'll have to see how long the budget lasts.
Yeah, I posted this on Twitter. I wish all the Arrowverse shows were this good.
If only.
If only, right? So at least we got one, right?
Well, maybe moving a lot of these shows to HBO Max, you might have an even better budget. So who knows?
Here's hoping. Here's hoping. Let's see. Let's keep our fingers crossed that happier days are ahead. So, do you have a rating? for these 3 episodes?
So overall, I think if I were to give, should we say, an average kind of calculating, I'd give it so far a 9 out of 10 Smallville football teams.
Excellent. Well, I'm right there with you. I'm going to give this a solid 9 as well. 9 out of 10 green PT Cruisers lifted by Superman.
Splendid.
Because that was the car that he raises at the beginning of the pilot.
Of course, yeah. And
during the origin recap, yeah.
And of course, it's featured in the cover of Action Comics #1.
Yeah, and with that great quote, "Thanks, my mom made it for me." After that, the boy appreciates his costume. It's a cool costume.
And I believe that actually graces your Facebook page at the moment, or at least
yes,
Superman in his garb. Yeah.
Yes, I love that. And the Fleischer Studios design, I loved that. As a huge fan like you of the Fleischer Studios Superman animated shorts, I was all over that. I'm just like, yes. They didn't go the full Golden Age. A lot of people thought, oh, that's the Golden Age costume. And I'm like, no, that's the Fleischer Studios costume, you boneheads. So get your Superman lore right. So anyway, Phantom Zone news. Just really quickly, I just want to mention that Michelle Gomez, Missy from Doctor Who, and what's her name from Sabrina?
Yes.
Is, Chilling Adventures of Sabrina, is going to be Madame Rouge on Doom Patrol.
Which is going to be really good.
Which is fantastic casting, right?
Yeah. Because, whatever they give Michelle, she's going to go to town with it.
Yeah. And it means we're probably going to get the Brotherhood of Evil in season 3. So hopefully we'll see the Brain and Monsieur Mala. And
I would be so happy. It'd be about time we got those, because I believe we've never seen them in live action, have we?
No, we haven't. So this is, as a longtime Doom Patrol fan, I'm going to geek really hard on this. Big time. Spoilers, right? So Nick and I will have something very fun to talk about whenever we get new episodes. And apparently because they're casting, they must be getting ready to start production soon on season 3 of Doom Patrol. So hopefully we get that by the end of 2021.
You'd hope so. And also with hopefully the way vaccinations are going, maybe studio lots and stuff will be opening up again so folks can shoot and what have you, because obviously that's been a major problem for the entertainment business.
Yeah, they'll probably still have to do protocols, but hopefully, that things will get back on a normal production schedule, or at least a better one.
Amen.
All right, so fingers crossed for that. So Phantom Zone Fan Mail, I only got one this week. Mm-hmm. But it's a great one from Holly Mack. Do you want to read it, Nick, or should I?
If you have it in front of I have it in front of me, Charles, but it's up to you.
You can do it if you want.
Okay, I'll take it. And in fact, funny enough, Holly actually told me. I sent you guys an email. I was like, okay, that's awesome. Because we recently had Holly on Happiness and Darkness. She said, don't worry, I have you guys covered for this episode of Phantom Zone 2. So she's definitely an email trooper.
We love getting Holly. We love your emails, so keep them coming.
We certainly do. So Holly writes in saying, yes, she's back, smiley face. I do also partake in the DC universe, though I am a bit closer to the Marvel universe. No problem there. Before I start with my thoughts on the first 3 episodes of Superman and Lois, I do have to say that I've enjoyed the majority of the Superman movies. Nothing beats the original ones with Christopher Reeve, agreed. I do admit I'm going to have to go back and rewatch the newer Superman movies. Any guidance there would be greatly appreciated. I think, Man of Steel is worth a watch, Charles, don't you?
Superman Returns, a little bit. I mean, Brandon Routh is great as Superman Clark Kent. I loved his, he's very much in the Christopher Reeve vibe because that's what they were going for. But I'm not really a fan of Kate Bosworth's Lois Lane, so.
Maybe Man of Steel is a better one in that sense to watch with Henry Cavill. Does a great job.
But it's not a perfect movie by any means.
No, by any means. No.
You've got neck-snapping Superman. You got Kevin Costner's Jonathan Kent being very unlike Jonathan Kent, in my opinion. So it's a flawed Superman movie. It's a good one for the most part, but it's also very flawed.
So I guess the consensus is, Holly, you've seen the best ones, and if you maybe have a moment to spare, you can check out Man of Steel or Superman Returns, but you've already seen the best ones. So
personally, I would just go back and watch Superman 1978 again. That's me.
Yeah, exactly. Donna all the way for sure. I mean, I enjoy, and then she carries on going, I enjoyed what episodes that I did see of the short-lived Krypton series, working my way through Smallville slowly but surely. It's going to take a while. What can I
Yep.
say? So many good shows that I've seen a few episodes here and there of, and comfort series that I go back and rewatch multiple times instead of dipping my toe into something new. Though I am trying to break myself of that. We're all guilty of that, Holly. I will admit that I did watch quite a few episodes of the New Adventures of Lois and Clark back in the day. One of the highlights was watching one episode, and surprise, surprise, Roger Daltrey of the Who playing a villain going after Clark.
Yes, he did. Yes, he did. There was some very interesting casting, special guest villains on that series.
Yeah.
On Lois and Clark, the New Adventures of Superman.
It was kind of like with Adam West's Batman, where they're climbing up the wall and you get the oddest of appearances.
Yeah, you had like Vincent Price as Egghead or Eartha Kitt as
Exactly.
like one of the Catwomen, along with Lee Merriweather and Julie Newmar. Although Julie Newmar is my personal favorite.
And Liberace at one point.
Liberace, that's a great one. So yeah, we could
there was
go
some
down the whole list. Yeah.
Oh yes. Now, on to my thoughts on the first 3 episodes of Superman and Lois. I love the setup in the first episode. Clark's juggling being a father, superhero, husband, and son. Also, the great debate about telling his boys the truth about who he is and their family legacy, if you will. Love the father-son bonding between Clark and Jordan during the second episode, and the mystery about Luther and how exactly he knows about Clark and just exactly where did Luther come from. Well, we did get the reveal that he is from another Earth. Also, the mystery of Morgan Edge. Only time will tell. The scenes between Jonathan and Jordan were fantastic, and I also liked the talk that Jonathan had with Clark about the strong possibility that Jordan needed to play football. The ending for episode 3, wow. I'm really enjoying what I've been seeing, and I'm looking forward to watching the upcoming episodes. I'll wrap it up here. Holly from Wisconsin.
Excellent email, Holly. Thank you so
Thank you
much.
so much.
We love hearing from you.
Yes, we always do.
Absolutely fabulous email. All right, and hopefully we'll be hearing more, especially if we decide, we have some room in our schedule to talk more Superman and Lois.
I think we'll probably have to make room.
I think we are going to have to make room because especially if the show keeps being so good, we're going to be like, we got to talk about this because we're going to just bust if we don't. So if you want to be like Holly, please do write to us at phantomzonecast@gmail.com. That's phantomzonecast@thegmail.com. Then you can also find us on Twitter at PhantomZoneCast, Facebook, the Phantom Zone Podcast, or Instagram at Phantom Zone Podcast. And Nick, where can they find you and hear all of your wonderful things that you do, including, that Hollywood land discussion regarding the mysterious death of George Reeves?
Well, first off, since Jesse had to leave earlier, first of all, I'd like to also plug Jesse's stuff as well, folks. Definitely check out the wonderful things that Jesse does. He does Set Lusting Bruce, a Bruce Springsteen podcast, where he talks with fans from all over the world about their love for Bruce Springsteen. So if you are a Springsteen fan and love great conversations, check out Set Lusting Bruce that Jesse does for sure. When it comes to me, I do host a Whiskey and Cigarettes show where we play today's country, traditional country, and everything else in between. For more information about that, you can visit our website. That's whiskeyandcigarettesshow.com. Podcast-wise, if superhero movies are your speed, I do host Happiness and Darkness. We're discussing all the superhero movies from all the big publishing houses. If you'd like to join us on there, you can shoot us an email, happinessanddarknesshow@gmail.com. We're on Facebook, Twitter, and the Instagram. And as Charles kindly mentioned, I also do host Gold Standard, the Oscars podcast, with the wonderful Rachel Friend and the awesome Zan Sprouse. We're going through all the movies that won the Oscar for Best Picture from 1927's Wings to the present day. We also have, of course, a Patreon page where we recently discussed the Hollywood Land today and had a blast doing that. And we can find us that also on Facebook and Twitter. And what about you, Charles?
Well, Nick, as for me, of course, at Charles Skaggs on Twitter, at Charles Skaggs on Instagram, or Facebook, Charles Skaggs in Hilliard, Ohio, or my blog of Geeky Things.
Damn good coffee. And hot.
Damn Good Coffee and Hot, where I talk about all the stuff we talk about here on the Phantom Zone podcast. So all kinds of comic book news, comic book TV news, sci-fi news of my other podcasts for Southgate Media Group, including Ghost with the Twin Peaks podcast they do with Zan Sprouse, where we talk all things Twin Peaks, David Lynch. And right now we're discussing, for the next 3 episodes, we're discussing On the Air, the short-lived ABC series, the pilot of which was directed by David Lynch. So we've just posted that episode, and very interesting, featuring a lot of Twin Peaks actors. It's a bit of a very obscure deep dive, kind of like talking about Les Lallar a little bit. And let's see, Next Stop Everywhere, the Doctor Who podcast, where Jesse Jackson and assorted special guest companions like a certain DJ Nick, who will be joining us to discuss Daleks, Invasion Earth 2150 AD this very week. So if you enjoy what Nick and I do here with Jesse here on the Phantom Zone, I hope you guys check us out when we talk that episode this coming week for episode 223 of Next Stop Everywhere. And we also talk other, Doctor Who, Torchwood, Sarah Jane Adventures, Big Finish Audios, and more. And let's see, what else? Drunk Cinema, that I also do with Zan Sprouse, where, it's kind of like our side gig, where we have adult conversation, adult beverages, and sit back and enjoy wonderful movies that we all love. We just finished talking, Star Trek II, The Wrath of Khan. And then coming up next, we're going to be discussing, and this is by Zan's request, we're going to be discussing the classic 1950s sci-fi movie Forbidden Planets.
Yay!
Which yours truly has never seen in its entirety.
A very different look for Walter Pidgeon in that film. I will say this much.
Yeah. Well, and also Leslie Nielsen, who this is like 3 decades before the Naked Gun or Airplane movies.
Yep. You're going to have fun with that one, Charles.
We're going to have fun with Robbie the Robot and all kinds of things. So look, I'm looking forward to it. I think it's going to be a lot of fun. And I hope everybody checks that out on Drug Cinema. Well, we also talked Goldfinger not too long ago as well. The James Bond classic. We did that for our 007th episode. All right. Obviously, Jesse's gone because, hey, we took too long. And I hope you enjoyed our Superman and Lois discussion. Hopefully, we'll find holes in the schedule where I have to make some to talk more Superman and Lois. So keep watching. Wait for us to talk more. Nick, I hope you had fun. Thank you so much for joining me and helping me wrap things up after Jesse left and bailed on us for some other podcast.
Cheating on us, see? Cheating on us with another podcast.
You just, left us with so much as a by your leave. It's scarpered. All right. Next time in the Phantom Zone, we're going to be discussing here at episode 210. We're going to discuss the very first episode of The Falcon and the Winter Soldier. Yeah. So we're going back we were in the Arrowverse after going to the Marvel Cinematic Universe, and now we're going back to the Marvel Cinematic Universe on Disney Plus, their second Marvel Cinematic Universe show. It's going to be running for 6 episodes, and obviously going to feature the return of Sharon Carter and Baron Zemo. Yes. So I'm really looking forward to this. And I'm sure you are as well, Nick.
Yeah. I mean, I haven't watched any of the trailers because I said I didn't want anything spoiled for me, but obviously a few things have been, spoiled for me whether I liked it or not with the posters. So, but that's as far as I've gone when it comes to spoiling myself because I just really want to go in as fresh and as sort of oblivious as possible when it comes to this show next Friday.
Yeah, there's some advanced reviews out, but I haven't read them because I'm just going to wait for Friday, man.
Yeah.
I learned that lesson with WandaVision that I don't want this stuff spoiled for me. I just want to enjoy it. So hope everybody does as well. And I hope you guys come back as we discuss The Falcon and Winter Soldier, episode 1, DJ Nick, and yours truly, because sadly Jesse Jackson is kind of taking a little hiatus from us. He finally got tired of us. But otherwise, everybody, please come on back, and we hope to hear from you. Please write in and join us next time on the Phantom Zone podcast. Goodbye, everybody.
Ciao.